put a couple of chairs.
Okay, I'm all set.
Take these and slide it back there. All right, so we're Team 120. We've been at this for a while. Team 120 is actually a combination of several teams. Let's see, Team 120 has been around for, I think, probably one of the oldest teams in Cleveland. And we originally started as Team 1270, and we combined the two teams, I think, 3 years ago, was it? At 120 and 1270. Prior to that, 1270 was combined with the Max Hayes team, the Rhodes team, and the idea was to keep First alive in Cleveland and figure out how to finance it, because you guys know it's really expensive to do a First Robotics team. And so we have 5, I think, teams from Cleveland at one time. It got real expensive for the school districts, and plus the resources, places to build a robot, the mentors, the engineering talent that you needed. It's really hard to get all those things put together for a team. So we decided to combine everything. We came up with Team 120. That's Cleveland's team, and that's who we are. And we were very fortunate last year in getting our robot to finally work at the national competition. And we were partnered up with some real good teams, and we won the nationals. And I think you put together a video, right? Yeah. So we want to show this first. Robbie, you want to get the lights and go ahead and play it? And then we'll talk about how we got here and some of the things we did to extend our build season. So we got real lucky. We were real fortunate. Everything fell in place for us at the right time. And to be honest with you, the robot wasn't even nearly as complete after the 6 weeks as you see it there. It wasn't even close. We had several different regionals that we went to, and at every regional, we were able to work on a robot and make it better and better. And at Palmetto, our goals, we sat down as a team and we said, okay, in 6 weeks, what is it that we can do? And then how many regionals are we going to? We ended up going to 3. And then what do we do at each regional to get ready for the finals at the nationals? And so we knew that in order to compete in the first regional, we just needed to drive. We needed to figure out how to make that thing drive. So we went to Palmetto and we took, what, 3rd place. Okay? And we got the we were working on the shooter. Didn't quite have the shooter figured out yet, but we were driving over the obstacles and we were able to compete, and we did okay. We took 3rd. Went to the Buckeye, that was the next regional, and our goal was to get the shooter to work. And so we finally got the shooter to work. So we were driving and the shooter was working. And then the next regional after that was the Cincinnati, and our goal there was to climb. And so we went from driving to shooting to climbing. We got the climber to work in the pit, and we finally had a chance in one of our last matches to try to climb, and it didn't work. We almost had it. And so then we're thinking, okay, by the time we go to the Nationals, which is in a few weeks, we better have that climber working. So we got to the Nationals, and we were told our robot's illegal. The wheels went past the frame, so we had to extend our bumpers and our frame by 1 inch. So we spent all our time working on our robot, extending the bumpers, extending the frame, so that we would cover those wheels, instead of working on our hanging, climbing mechanism. But on Saturday morning, we finally got everything together, and that was the day of the finals. We were picked by a couple of big robots that we've competed with in the past that saw what we were doing, understood our robot, and felt it would be a good contribution to their alliance in order to make a run at the Nationals. And the rest is history. We won. So the only reason we were able to extend that build season from that 6 weeks all the way up to the Nationals is because we had Solidworks models that we were working off of. And if you look at the rules, and I'm going to go over the rules right now, and it's kind of important to go back to the rules. And every year they change. It used to be 20 pounds, now it's 30 pounds, and who knows what it will be next year. But this is the most important rules, and I highly stress and emphasize the importance of reading the rules from cover to cover. You're going to see a lot of stuff that's repetitious from previous years, because all they do, I mean, think about it. These guys putting on a tournament, they've got this huge manual, it's about so thick, they're going to change a few pages, a few things. And sometimes they hide it in the appendix, some important rules. So you got to read it from cover to cover, you got to read everything. And when we read the rules, this is what we based our extended build season on. Number one is you had an allowance during the load-in, rule number 18. You can bring up to 30 pounds of fabricated material. Okay? During the event, you can use all the raw material you want. So what that told us is that after the 6-week build period, we bag up the robot, but we can work on 30 pounds of something. So what is it that we're going to work on? Okay? So you have to actually schedule it. The other part is that, the robot has to be bagged, rule number R16. You have to stop working on the robot up until the first event. You cannot work on it between events. And you can only work on it during the pit hours, not after pit hours. So you can take all that raw material. If you have an object that you want to build, you have to design it so you can build it with your tools in the pit, whatever you have in your pit. And you can build whatever you want. You can build a whole new robot if you wanted to, if you have enough raw material. Okay? Or you can bring in 30 pounds of replacement parts that you can put on that robot. And this is what we took advantage of. So Robert's going to show you the actual, any questions before I go further? Because this is a real important rule, because this is what extended our goat season. Because at every regional, we brought something in. Okay? Yes?
Would you bring something different in every regional, or would it be the same 30 pounds there?
You can bring something different in every regional. Okay? Here's something else, and this is something we were kind of discussing. If you have your robot that weighs 120 pounds, they don't weigh it when it leaves, and they don't weigh it when you first bring it in. So could you have a whole bunch of stuff in that bag, like maybe another arm you're working on or something wrapped up? You have to stop working on it, and you can't get to it again until the next regional, and you can bring another 30-pound additional into the competition. Yeah, exactly. Now you're extending your whole build season, aren't you? Okay? And according to the rules, that's legal. And people do that. If you looked at the Buckeye Regional, you remember that one team, I think they were called the Sparks? They didn't compete in any of the matches at the beginning. They weren't on the practice field. I think they missed the first 2 matches they were in, and they finally started coming out, and they ended up winning the competition. Why? They were working on the robot the whole time. They were actually building the robot. It just came in pieces and parts in the bag. And they had some 30 pounds worth of other equipment that they were assembling that whole robot in the pit. That was their first regional. Okay? So they really extended their build season, right? So they didn't even have a completed robot when they bagged it. And they finally completed it after their first regional. We saw them at the Nationals. And they finally had their robot working. So if you think about what it is that we did this past year, we're not going to be able to duplicate it this year. We're not going to go to as many regionals. But at every regional we went to, technically, we can bring in 30 additional pounds of material to put on that robot that's fabricated to either be a replacement piece. So as we're competing, we see there's something wrong that doesn't work, let's fix it. So you can fix it during the pit hours. You can strip everything out. And at the Buckeye, we stripped a lot of our stuff off that robot. But it was when we waited before we left, so it was less than 30 pounds, so we knew what we could bring back. And then we bagged up the robot and we worked on fixing stuff, and then we brought it back for the next regional. Okay? So that 6 weeks is to get all your stuff together, your base, but you still have every regional that you go to work on the robot. And we were fortunate that we went to 3 regionals. Okay? Does that make sense? That's how you extend your period. So how's it possible to do that? So, and it was kind of interesting because, you know, as a team we sat down, in that first week, we always take the first week to figure out what the competition is. And you got to, again, read the manual and look at the competition. And really, I think this year it wasn't until the second week that we kind of figured everything out. It was really a complex series of problems with this past year. Going over all the obstacles, you had height restriction, you had a weight restriction as far as where your center of gravity was, so you would easily flip over because of the obstacles. And at the end, you had to climb. So what we decided as a team was, again, let's build a robot that can drive over the obstacles. Let's leave our options open so we can figure out at the end how to climb. And we also want to be able to shoot. So we build our robot, number 1, to be able to drive over the obstacles, number 2, to be able to shoot, number 3, to be able to climb. And so if you look at the design, and Robert's going to go through the stages of designing. The first thing we designed was, how do you climb? Or, I'm sorry, how do you drive over the obstacles? And before I'm going to get him started on this, the reason why we picked this design, if you remember, our robot was 2 series of tracks. We wanted to do pneumatic wheels, but nobody had pneumatic wheels left. We couldn't buy them anymore. Do you remember that? And we were calling everywhere. And the ones we found weighed so much, and we'd have to modify them so much, we said, man, we're messed up. Everybody bought the pneumatic wheels. Andy Mark didn't have them. McMaster Car, we couldn't find the right wheels. We called everywhere to get these pneumatic wheels. We couldn't get them. The 4-inch, that was the 4-inch pneumatic. Every team in the country had those wheels. They bought them up. There wasn't a single pneumatic wheel we could buy. We said, okay, step 2, what do we do? We know we have 4-inch obstacles we have to climb over, right? So if you have to climb over a 4-inch obstacle, how do you make sure that that robot climbs over it? So we decided we were going to do a tank drive system, okay? So this really is a tank, kind of. Let me explain something here. So when we looked at videos of a tank, You have your drive wheel, and you have all these little wheels that are loaded with springs, right? And they're putting pressure on that tread. And you have like an idle wheel there. So your tank treads like this, okay? And these have springs pushing down. So when this is driving, this pushes up. So your treads are constantly moving up and down with the wheels, right? When you're going over obstacles. So we thought, okay, if we build this, we're going to add 120 pounds to the base and not have any weight allowance left for the superstructure, because by the time you put all the springs in there, all the mechanisms to build a true tank drive system, you used up all your weight. So we said, okay, what if we eliminate all this? Okay? What if we eliminate all that? We still have this. We know we're going to have something come up like this. There's going to be a void. We're going to have to climb over 4 inches. We're going to have to come back down again. So instead of having spring-loaded, we had it fixed, cut all the weight out. We came up with 2 tread systems where that 4-inch obstacle was in constant contact with our tread at all times. Okay, and Robert will show you here if you can move it. Again, Solidworks allows you to do this. This is our system. This is all tread. This is chain turning everything. With these.
This was the first version. So this was,
Go ahead.
this one right here, you can see there is a wheel in the center. So we originally came up with this design, and this was week 1 that we had this all catted up, everything was set. We called the company that we received our belts from, and said, okay, here's our dimensions, this is what we want to go with. And the guy on the phone just instantly stops and he goes, oh, we have a problem. Okay, well, what's the problem? Your belts need to be 50% larger. So in that few days that we had worked on coming up with this idea, that whole idea was scrapped. And then it's like, okay, well, where do you go from there? Now the next idea is what George was saying, where we combine the 2 of them. And give me a second. What we actually came up with was our current robot design. Which was, what we ended up doing is we said, okay, if our belt space needs to be 50% larger, the only way to accommodate it is either to have a giant coil or a giant lead coming off of it, or the next thing is to incorporate 1 full-length belt. The problem with doing 1 full-length belt is, like George was saying, how we want the W, we want to have as many points of contact when we go over that. Now what you're going to do is you're going to have a roller that's basically on top of your tread. And you don't want to have that because now you're wearing your surface of your tread a lot faster than what you would do off of the regular carpet.
Not only that, the robot would be very stiff, right? It would be bouncing quite a bit when it's going over the obstacles. And the weight of the traction system, by putting springs in there and having rollers pushing down on that track to make sure there's contact, you're adding a whole lot of weight to the base of the robot. And again, you're trying to make a real light base so that you can put more weight into your superstructure. Keep in mind, right now, all we're talking about, he's showing you the whole robot, but all we're talking about the first couple of weeks when we're planning is just to drive over those obstacles. Okay? That's all we're talking about. That was our number 1 goal. And so we're trying to figure out how to drive over those obstacles, and nobody's giving us any tires. We have no tires. We can't get tires. We got to come up with something. So this was, we knew we wanted to shoot, and while we're trying to figure out how to drive over the obstacles, these guys are in the corner. What'd you try? You tried pneumatics, okay, which we eventually used, but you also tried, why don't you tell us? There was like 3 or 4 different ways of shooting the ball.
We had spring.
You had spring.
Yeah. Spring. We tried motor driving the old flywheel, but that was probably the most effective one.
Did we do surgical tubing? That was our first one, right?
Yeah, surgical tubing, you tried that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So these guys are experimenting, and you knew what the space limitations were, right? Because we knew that we were going to have this drive system, we're going to have 2 of these. We knew how much room we had in the middle, okay? And so we said, okay, here's your space, come up with the shooter. So they're trying to figure out what the shooter is while we're doing the drive wheels. Again, you only have 6 weeks, right? You're not going to get this whole thing complete. And the other thing is we said, Okay, we also want to climb, where we're going to put that. Well, if you notice, when we were designing this two V systems, we said, okay, we're going to have to build it. We can't be over 14 inches because we decided we're going to climb under the rail. So you have, can you show the top of this? Right here is space. We left space in here for some sort of pickup mechanism. And then once they got the shooter figured out, they started working on a pickup mechanism. We must have gone through 10 different things. Okay? What do? We did a tape measure, and we had a tape measure system catted out.
We had 3 different ones actually. We had a lot. We had the tape measure one where we had a roller extending a tape measure to bring the hook up, and then we had another one that was linear slides built out of aluminum flat stock pieces that slid on top of each other. But they were all really heavy, and they all took a lot more space than they.
But they all fit within that space that we allocated on the robot. Okay, we eventually came up with a paint pole from Home Depot that actually lifted up the hook and was able to winch us up. Okay, so and that right here's your paint pole. And again, all of this was we were able to do this. The paint pole system, the tape measure system, all those systems that we were trying, we were able to do after the robot was back up. Okay, we were still trying to figure it out because we didn't have it all figured out yet. So we were extending our build season. This is a paint pole. This costs $18. You buy it at Home Depot. Lowe's doesn't have it, unfortunately. You know, the only place you get is Home Depot, so you got to make sure you got a couple of these. This is a pneumatic piston, and again, this we have to build. These pieces we have to actually build on the premise because we didn't know exactly how it would fit in the robot. We had a general idea of how it would fit based on the CAD drawings, but everything here was assembled with screws and nuts and bolts, and we cut it out with the jigsaw and we bent it up with a vise to get the right angle so it would fit inside the robot. We kind of knew where it would fit, but we weren't positive, and so we had to build it all. And I think we did this in Cincinnati last year. We were putting this piece on. And we didn't get the piston until the Nationals. We had the special order of piston, right?
Yes,
So we bought that in for the Nationals.
18-inch stroke.
Yeah. So we had to wait for the Nationals for that. So I guess, the point is, of all of this, and Robert will go through the different stages of what we went through and how we build it. The point is, if you have a good CAD model on the front end, and you have a plan of extending your build season where you know you're going to do step 1, then step 2, then step 3, you can schedule it so that you're building the other accessory pieces within the rules to put on your robot and make sure that you're prepared in the pit to do whatever work's required to get that done. So you can actually extend your 6 weeks. Okay? But it's important to go to more than one regional. That's the other thing. That's the other catch. Any questions so far? All right, Rob, why don't you walk us through this? What do we do?
So, as George said, the first time our first design for this, we've been doing it for so many years that we have a lot of parts laying around. So usually what we'll do is we'll go through all of our stuff and we'll find pieces and say, okay, the kids might come up with an idea and we'll send them upstairs to grab parts for it. We came up with an idea using old window motors. What the window motor is just a worm gear driven and real small, compact, fit into a real tight area. So what we originally did is in this area right here, we would cram a motor in. Our intake arms were inside a little bit closer, which just kind of protected a little bit more. There was less of a chance of somebody hitting them. And 2 or 3 practice matches in, we realized that a lot of the internal workings were made out of plastic. There was a few things we might have been able to do to add limit switches and things like that so that the entire arm, when it's slammed down, it would be a little bit protected. But just having the internal parts being plastic, it kind of threw that one out. We went through
3 motors in Palmetto.
Three sets of motors.
In Palmetto.
So there's a right-hand version, a left-hand version. We just constantly kept cracking them, kept trying to repair them. That didn't work. So that was Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon, we found out we had all these problems. We always have our models with us, always have our computers with us. We went and sat down Friday morning, went through a complete design change. We said, okay, there's got to be something better to do. We got on AndyMark, got on Vex Pro, look for different motors, see
what he's talking about is this motor right here. We had this arm on the inside, and the motor was mounted here, and the arm was on the inside of the motor. That was a plastic housing, plastic. It had a lot of torque, and that's what we needed. We wanted to lift things. But the gears inside, if this arm took any sort of impact, any kind of hit, the motor would break.
We should one in half.
Yeah, it was terrible. We did not count on that. So
Was that
now,
because of the plastic housing, or was that just?
Yeah.
Okay.
everything
Yeah,
inside,
right,
the
it's
gears would strip,
serious
the
price.
housing would break. It was just
Okay.
terrible.
We got clipped by some other robots
Mhm.
by the field too, just driving
Right.
around. So when they hit like that,
They just
force
crack.
So this
Force it off.
is our very first competition in Palmetto. It's like, what do? Throw in a towel? We're done. Our whole system here for picking up the balls isn't going to work if we use those motors. And so then, like Robert said, they started going through catalogs at the competition. What do we do? What do we put in place? What kind of gearbox do we put in there? How do we change this? And again, because you had the Solidworks models, we were able to download the gearbox, put it in, make the changes, figure out what you're going to do, extend the arms out, what new materials do we need, what do we take off the robot, what do we take back with us, let's stay within that 30 pounds, let's make sure we weigh it before we leave. And so we're trying to figure this out because in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I think we had the Buckeye, right? And so we had to be ready for that. We weren't going to come to Cleveland, be embarrassed, or couldn't even lift balls up. It was terrible. We were getting beat up pretty bad with that. Go ahead.
So we like I said, we sat down, and within maybe an hour of sourcing out new parts, seeing what was available, finding the parts, bringing them in, redesigning the arms. I think I sat down with a couple of kids, and we came up with a new model. And it was simple enough that just a few extra days, and even going through testing with the robot, you kind of would have found out. But as we all know, practicing at home and running a full competition are two different things. Things happen that you don't really think of. Who would have ever thought to kick the side of the arm and see whether or not the plastic housing still hold up? But from going there, we were able to come in, like I said, we added in these motors. There's 2 on each side. We didn't count on this happening, but what we actually did is that the opening for the balls to come in, we actually opened that up 6 or 7 inches, something like that, which you never really think of, because if you're practicing, you kind of just see a ball, you go and drive towards it. You don't count on being 40, 50 feet away on the other side of the field and noticing how hard it is to pick those balls up. So once we came up with that, we went through and were able to change everything. We actually modeled this on the bus ride home Sunday. We took time just passing the computer around. Somebody would throw in one part. We would pull everything in together, get everything completely designed up. The other thing we kind of do is, I can show you how. What we usually try to do to make stuff simple is we'll design our parts similar. When we designed our frame, we don't want to, if we have 50 pieces, we don't want to have 50 different pieces. We'll try to make them as close as possible, or if not the same. If we go through and look at our frame, what we actually see is this side is almost exactly symmetrical to the other side, where all of the plates mount, all the blocks. Whenever we design blocks, we try to make them all the same. Like I said, we have, just in this side alone, this yellow block, we have 4 of those. With those 4, we're spacing out the panel, making sure everything, it stays real tight, real strong. So we designed all of those up similar, if not the same. Anything that you can buy off the shelf obviously takes time away from somebody having to make it. So we spend hours and hours on McMaster car. The nice thing about McMaster car is almost any part that they have on their website, they have CAD models for. Bearings, everything else. So it makes stuff real life as far as knowing where things go, how to place them. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll actually incorporate all the screws, all the nuts, all the washers, so that when you put this whole assembly together, you know what you have and what goes where.
Every one of these bearings is the same. All the screws that we use are the same. All the nuts are the same size. Might have different lengths because it's a little bit thicker here, but we keep everything simple. We keep it simple. You're going to go with 5mm screws. You can go with 1 inch, 2 inch, or whatever. Or you just keep it all the same. It might be a little bit longer. The nuts are the same. Everything's the same. Try to keep it real simple. And again, you can do that if you have the models built ahead of time. You can make sure that everything's lined up. And what he means by keeping the parts the same, the left side is just like the right side. The front part of the robot's the same as the back part of the robot. There might be an extension piece on one piece, but this is exactly the same as the other piece. So when you're designing this up and you're CADing this up, you just take this, delete this part here, and put something else on it. But you keep everything lined up symmetrical, and you keep everything simple, and you keep everything the same. You don't try to complicate it. And it's easy to get into this and start complicating it. Right, guys? Yeah.
Guilty.
Yeah. You start overthinking. You go, don't, just keep it all the same. This plate is the same as this plate, is the same as this plate, is the same as the other plate on the other side. Okay? On that back section. And it's the same with these plates. They're all the same. Everything's lined up.
Now, one thing to think of, especially coming from
One more thing. And the other thing that, if you make a mistake, okay, like having this wheel stick up past the frame, okay, which when you go to the nationals, the judges catch you, all right, right here, right there, yeah, sticks up past the frame. So you're at the competition in the nationals trying to figure out how to cut the bumper to extend it an inch, how to extend your robot an inch, so if this is within a robot frame. That was a mistake, but we had 4 of them, one on each side, okay? That's the problem with keeping everything the same. If you make a mistake, it's a big one.
Another thing I can say is, so I've been working with Solidworks ever since I was a student, so I was in 2004. And you constantly learn, and you're constantly evolving with how you work with Solidworks. One thing that we've been trying to push a lot for within the past few years is we're so used to, we're hands-on, we'll go out there, we'll throw something together, we'll just start drilling holes, start matching things up. But what you realize is you basically hurt yourself down the line. If we wouldn't have this full robot in CAD in SolidWorks, it would have taken us a lot longer to solve our problems. If you just have somebody who randomly goes over and drills a hole point over here, unless you're taking notes, you understand where you're putting everything, who's to say where that hole is? And unless you've got a photographic memory or you can remember it that well that 3-4 weeks down the road, oh yeah, it's 5 inches from here and 2 inches down. It's kind of hard to do that with everything else that goes on. This is our second year, completely designing the robot in SolidWorks. And it allows you to work through a lot of problems. Now there are some things, the way certain mechanisms work, the way it's going to react in real life compared to in SolidWorks, I can design it to roll up at a certain angle, but you don't really take into account how fast it's going and if it's going to hit it. And when we looked at going over the 4-inch bump last year, is we'll just roll up, it'll just climb over, and it'll just nicely land. And then you get there, and it's like, okay, you need to run full force and be able to launch yourself over, which is what a lot of teams did. And a lot of teams did with pneumatic wheels, which was nice because they had that cushion, that impact. If you have a solid frame, there's no no type of, there's no type of give in it. It makes it a little bit difficult. But you can always go back and you can change things. Now what George was saying about making everything the same, you try to do it as much as possible. You're never going to be able to make everything exactly the same because certain mechanisms have to go here, certain things have to go over there. But what you try to do is you try to start off as the same as possible. I can go back to here where when we first originally started this, what we'll do is we'll come up with a sketch, especially with doing belts. This is our second year using belts. We've learned in the past that belts are predictable as far as you can tell the company to make a certain size. But going back with tension and how hard it is to put it in place, it takes a little bit of playing with. But the main thing is now you get your points sketched up. We stuck a block in. We decided that okay, this is kind of the angle that we figured we would need. We don't really engineer a lot of stuff. We just kind of figure it out. But this gives you a way to go. Kind of place things in, see how it reacts to it, see whether or not you like it. You'll come up with a set plate. And then this was just a design. We said, okay, we know we're going to go over a bump. We don't want to bang up the frame all the time, so let's give it some room. We pull some room in the way.
And then we knew we had a height restriction too. We wanted to be at 14 inches. So I think this is 12, right?
I think it's 14.
So 14. Was it 16 inches under the bar? Do you guys remember? 14 under the bar? So that was 12.
It was 16 under the bar, but what we did is we told ourselves that it was 14. So we actually designed our frame to be at 14 inches. Okay. And what was funny is George just constantly pushed 14, 14, 14. Actually, I think he said 15. And that's when we came, okay, we'll make it 14. Then we ended up finally making field elements, and we looked at it and we're like, wow, this thing's like 17 inches. We constantly beat it in our heads to make it as small as we can fit to make it work a little bit easier.
One of the problems we had, we did the math on this actually, is that whatever it was 16 inches of room, but you're going up a degree, an incline,
Right.
what was it? So you're actually higher on the front end, okay? And then it levels off, and then it's higher on the back end. So we wanted to make sure we cleared it, so we had to figure out what that angle was. So 14 happened to be the magic number for us, because of the length of the robot, and the height, and the way it moved, and where the wheel placement was, where it lifted, it worked. You know, and it barely cleared once we put our mechanism, our lifting mechanism on top of it. I think we got hung up once, didn't we? Going underneath there, it kept hitting it. So we were barely making it. Any questions while we're talking about this stuff here? You guys use CAD right now? Solidworks? Solidworks. Do your whole robot in Solidworks. It'll make it so much easier.
Do you guys have any advice for how to make your robot, how you guys do your robots in Solidworks?
Yeah.
How you guys make it?
Yeah, so it's like he was kind of pointing it out. We don't even have an idea what the robot's going to look like yet. We just know what the field elements are, right? We knew we had to drive over them, so we just had angles. And then it's okay, so now we know we're going to put tread on those wheels. So all we have is the wheels and the tread. And then what do we do next? Where are we going to mount stuff? And you start thinking about that. How much of a plate do you need? How much room do you need? You start talking. You have no clue what it's going to look like. We had no idea. This is what we had. Okay, we knew that this is the shape that's going to be driving over the obstacle.
George, that was V1 before we changed it.
We did change it. So this
It
is
just ran
this is how we started building our robot. Here's we knew that the tallest obstacle is 4 inches tall. So if we knew we went over that center bar would go over anything, right? So we kind of looked at this. This had too many wheels. This is how we started. You know, we just kept going over and over and over again. And then we put a belt on there. If the belt fits, you know what's going to happen. How high is it going to raise the robot? Where's the center of gravity? Is it going to flip over if we start going over, right? Those are all the things you have to look at. So what's going to happen when this thing starts climbing? Is it going to pick it up and flip it? how high is this robot going to be? What's the angle it's going to be at? Where's the center of gravity? So you start to look at all those things. So to your point, when building the robot, what are the obstacles? Attack the obstacles. You have no clue what the robot's going to look like. If you have time, our theme was the dragon, right? So, you know, we always try to have some sort of dragon element in our robot. We had like little wings this year. That was the part that picked up the ball. And then, again, you're looking at the belts, okay? I have no clue what the robot's going to look like. Don't know what's inside here yet. I know there's going to be a motor here somewhere. But this is what we're looking at. Is this going to clear? Is it going to clear here? What happens? Are we going to get hung up here in the center on this block once this goes over? What are we going to do? How are we going to fix that problem? That's what you're looking at, okay? I have no clue what this year's competition is going to be, but we're going to be able to drive it quickly. That's number one. And then we start looking at, you know, how you score. The shooter was a whole different problem. We knew we had space in the center. If you can show the top of the robot. Once we got the drive system kind of figured out, and we started working on the shooter, and we had, you know, thank goodness for these new phones with slow motion, because, you know, we could not figure out how to get our shooter to work. We knew we had pistons, we had this arm, but the piece that held the ball, that was a huge, huge mystery. We figured out the angles that fit in there because we had CAD drawings. We were able to figure out where everything would be placed. And one of the things we realized that we were so disappointed when we finally had the two pistons mounted in the robot, and we had this working. And, you know, the piston has an intake. These are double-acting cylinders. You have an intake and output, right? And so when we shot the air, it barely threw the ball. We go, that's it, I quit, man. I'm not going to do this anymore. And we realized that as air's flowing through there, pushing it, it all starts to come out. So if you eliminate the restrictions, we took off the valves off the pistons, the restrictions, and let the air come out through a bigger opening, we were able to get more power through there, and it was throwing the ball. But I don't know, do we have the gripper? Do we have that catted up? I thought we catted it up. You did cat it up.
And I'll give one word of advice. Not everything can be put into Solidworks, but you almost have to pick and choose what you want to spend time on. The gripper that he's talking about, what we literally did is we're fortunate enough to have a brake which we can bend and form aluminum and Lexan. He literally went over with some of the kids.
18 different versions.
We literally went over and said, okay, how do we want to scoop the balls? Kids went over and grabbed cardboard. These guys started kind of bending it up and says, okay, now I want to have two little fingers to grab on the back. Took a piece of something and started bending. All right, that doesn't work right. Go over here, do another one. Go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I can have these guys, and since, like I said, I've been doing this so long, I'm usually the one that they come to and say, hey, here, throw this in SolidWorks. And you just look at them and say, no. There's certain angles, there's certain things they want to do. And it's almost like with my thought behind it is, we're not figuring out the dynamics of how certain things work as far as, we can't tell with Lexan it's going to bend a certain way when it's in a certain point of moving.
So you don't have time for us. We're not really keen on doing the math and engineering part, for example. I'm sure, and Rick can probably tell you, it'll probably take us a week to figure out the formulas, but we don't have a week. It's like if you have a ball that weighs, how much did that ball weigh? 3 pounds?
Probably like 5.
Was it 5 pounds? 5 pounds, you have an arm that's extended, I think this was 18 inches. You had 5 pounds on the end, and you have Lexan that has a flexibility rate of whatever, and you're throwing so much force behind it, what distance you can get out of it. I'm sure there's a math formula for that, right? I don't know what it is, okay? I'm not a mathematician. I'm sure I could, eventually we can find someone who can figure it out. We just kept making different arms, different pieces and parts until we got exactly what we needed. We saw what we changed and how it would change the effect of the ball flying. So we physically just did it. We're more technicians than we are mathematicians. Okay, so we just kept working and working and working it simply because you only have 6 weeks to do this. Right? You don't have 6 weeks for this. You only have a week maybe to finally perfect this. So the arm, am I right on this? The arm was so cool. Here's your arm. Okay, Pedro Martinez. You guys remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I remember the interview with him and he was showing us how he throws a fastball and his fingers were so long and he grabbed that ball and he had his wrist back. He says it's all in the wrist and when you release it, those two fingers, he goes his fingernails dug into the ball and he grabbed it, he spun it and that thing was just 100 miles an hour. And I'm thinking, great, how do we make the Pedro Martinez mechanism, right? So we had a piece of Lexington. Actually, we did aluminum first, right?
Yes.
Solid aluminum. Okay? No flex at all. Could not get that momentum. It's like if you look at my wrist, this is all it did. Okay? Then we said, okay, let's make it all out of Lexington. Okay, so now I got this going on. And it wasn't, the ball's going like this. It was like a knuckleball. Couldn't control the ball. Remember, the target was what, 10 inches? Right?
It was like a foot wide by 2 feet tall.
Okay, so in my mind, I'm thinking we got a 10-inch round. The ball was 10 inches. The target was 12. You don't have a whole lot of room to get it in there. How are you going to get it in there? It's got to be perfect. You can't allow that ball to move back and forth. So we ended up making a combination of aluminum base with half of it being Lexan. And by doing slow motion, we were able to see how would bend that Lexan, where we had those two fingers, and what it would do with the ball, how much flex there was, and how thick the Lexan had to be. So we just kept doing that until we got the right combination. And then we were consistent. And it looked like it was impossible, right? We saw other teams with the same sort of shooter that we had that could not get the ball into the target because the ball was going this way, this way, because they didn't take the time to figure out exactly what the motion was, what the flexibility was of the arm. Now, I'm sure there's math behind it. And it'd be a great math problem. And it would take a year to figure it out. We didn't have that.
Well, we did a lot of statistics on how often it was hitting. We got 10 shots, it's okay, we just got 8, let's try to get 9. Like that, and that really helped us by quantifying that.
Exactly. Every time we made a change, whether the fingers were longer, if they were bent in a different direction, what's more consistent? And we were keeping track of that. So it's a process of elimination. So at some point, you just have to use brute force to figure this thing out. And once we got that shooter done, now we were able to drive and shoot. The only thing we couldn't do was climb. Okay? And again, a lot of these pieces and parts you can bring in, or you can work on during the competition. They're not that complicated. The bulk of the robot, the big stuff, is already done. That's done within the 6 weeks. So when you're building your scheduling your build, what do you have to get done that you can't do in the pit? Let's do that right now. And everything else that we need, let's kind of plan and figure out how we're going to do it in the pit and how we're going to do it in the different regions. Okay, Robert.
Probably another thing to say is try not to get frustrated. Unless you've been working with Solidworks a long time, there's still a lot of things that I've been doing, like I said, 10 years or so. There's still a lot of things that I don't know. But you learn as you go. For you guys, new people starting, go online, there's tutorials. And then you almost just need to play with it. Think of something that you want to design up. Look at something, see something that has a bunch of pieces put together and try to make those pieces and try to model it and try to figure out how to put them together. There's a lot of shortcuts that you can find with as far as designing a robot. You guys all, basically, if you all use SolidWorks before? Okay, so SolidWorks works, you build a part, you build multiple parts and you put them into an assembly. An assembly is a group of parts. Within that group of parts, you can tell certain things to do, certain parts that they're allowed to move, certain parts that they have to stay stuck together, and that's called mating. Then as soon as you have assemblies, you can start bringing it into other assemblies. This right here is one of our assemblies. So when we saw the movement of our shooter, once we figured that out, we can go back into our robot and say, okay, with those parameters that we have, how much room do we have inside of our robot? And then what we'll actually do is, you can see we have pivot points, which is what we sort of figured out where everything could be, and now you just start adding things in. These are blocks from McMaster car. They're already set to a certain size. Well, you can't change that size. It's manufactured car. It's a set part.
So what you now you go in is you'll start changing, working things around it. A lot of these black parts are just either brackets or plates. So what you can see is we actually went through and some of the stuff.
So you saw the drive mechanism, the sides, right? Now we're adding the shooter, okay? And we came up with the design, the angles, everything worked. How do you put it in a robot? And that's what we're doing now. Again, if you have it on Solidworks, you just start putting around with it. And then, once that was done, how do you create the pickup mechanism? How do you load it so it shoots automatically? We got lucky. We had a whole different idea of how this pickup mechanism was going to work. In our minds, we were thinking we would drive, grab the ball, pick the ball up, and drop it inside. Okay? Takes a lot of time, but we said we know that's going to work. So we drive, turn on the mechanism, it winds up, grabs the ball, then we lift it up over our heads, release the ball, it goes into the shooter, and the shooter shoots. But when we got done building it, we started driving it around, all we did was just turn this on, and it picked the ball up automatically, forced it over the bumper and into the shooter. We didn't have to lift it. So we just drove it, just picked them up like a vacuum cleaner. We never counted on that. It was awesome. Okay? And it was quick. Because it takes time to pick it up, lift it, drop it, put it back down, go after the next ball. So once we put this down, we just swept the balls right in. And we were able to make the cradle for the ball out of aluminum and Lexan where it caught it. And we got lucky again that this was at the right angle, so when the ball hit here, we just rolled back into the cradle. We lucked out. We just lucked out. Because that opening was so tight that if we just got the ball anywhere in there, it would fall into the cradle and we could shoot. We did not count on that.
No, don't count on anything at first. Just go at it. That's probably the best advice. You're gonna have thousands and thousands of ideas. You're gonna spend time making stuff, and somebody's gonna tell you no, it doesn't work, throw it away. But what you'll find is sooner or later it'll happen. It'll work.
We had, this is the last story I'm going to tell you guys, and I'm opening up for discussion. I think we're here till 2:30, right?
Yes.
All right, so once we get the bar on there, put the bar on there for planning. The question is, how do you lift the robot out, hook onto that bar, lift the robot? And so here's your mechanism. All right, we have a hook. I don't know how many times we have to redesign this one on the 3D printer, okay, to get the right angle, make sure it stays within the perimeter of the robot. But this thing goes up, the hook, and you saw the video where it hooked on that bar, and then the rope picked it up. Well, we had engineers come up to us and say, it's not going to work. And the reason why it wouldn't work, and we just draw it up here. And if you looked at the robot, I can't, we'll show the video again where, at some point if you come down during kickoff, you got to look at the robot. But this arm goes up and has a hook, and off that hook, this is on the front of the robot now. Here's your robot. It's down here. We had rope. Okay, the robot's like this. So we had rope tied to a loop here, 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 and here. And this rope came to the center. There was 4 pieces of rope, came to a center, and there was a hook here. And it had rope that came from this hook. We had rope that came down to a winch. Actually, I'm going to mess this up. Rob, you're going to have to help me.
I'll get the ring on there. Was there a ring?
There's a ring. Here's the ring.
In the center.
Okay, the ring right here in the center. The rope.
Here and back.
The rope now, the arm's gone. So the rope came down. There were motors. Okay, this was tied. Hang on. I'm getting confused here.
So now George says this is the arm. So what we did is we had 4 contact points. These were almost all the way out to the corners. And then what we did is we had 2 motors acting as a winch. What it did is it came up to the ring, went up to the arm, to the hook, and then came back down. So everything, all these 4 points were just set to a center location. Actually, not center, it was offset, but it was a location that was a fixed point. That point never changed. The winch would draw the rope down, which fed through a center loop, came up to the hook on the arm, and then came back down. There were no moving parts as far as bearings between this position and the position on the hook. The hook was literally a hook with a hole in it. And what we did is we actually came in and we fine sanded and polished this edge and took rope and then took it back and forth and said, okay, this rope is never going to break. This ring right here was just a giant ring. It was completely round.
It was used for climbing,
Non-slip rings.
It was just real slick, aluminum, lightweight ring.
So that entire, we had engineers from NASA.
Well, the engineers would come up and say, because of the angle, if we came down and over, we had the motor here and the rope went this way, straight across and straight up, the force would allow us to lift the rope up. Because that ring was up higher, for some reason that angle and the force required, it kept doing the math saying there's no way you're going to lift that rope up. It's not going to work. And it's great that we're not engineers. We're technicians, right? We said, if one motor's not going to work, let's add another motor. So we doubled the amount of force and torque needed, and we forced ourselves up. Okay? Of course, engineers are sitting there looking at the math saying it's going to work. Good thing we didn't look at the math. I mean, no, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Again, we just knew that if we put two motors in there, what was the ratio? 150 to 1? 100 to 1? And it had so much torque, it could lift me up. Okay? And that 120 pounds was not going to be a problem. So, but it was amazing to see these guys coming around saying, it's not going to work, it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And here we are in the finals, and we went up every single time. And it didn't start working until Saturday morning. Okay? And that's the amazing thing. It was not working until Saturday, the day of the finals. Any more questions? You got a lot of them. So the moral of the story is plan ahead, extend your season, get all your measurements, keep track of what you're doing, follow the rules, make sure you read the rule book, and you'll win. Okay? And never give up. Kids, I was ready to quit. When they told us this robot was illegal, is this stuck out? I said, that's it, I'm going home. I was done. I was just so frustrated because that meant cutting the bumpers, extending everything out. So we had the CAD drawings. We knew. He said if there was a problem, we'll just add a half an inch to each side. It's easier said than done, but we ended up doing it. We ended up putting aluminum, extending this out, extending the bumpers. And the judges said that was okay, and we went and started competing. Well, that was a real challenge. We went to 3 regionals, and nobody said anything. And at the nationals, they said it's illegal, you can't compete. So that was really frustrating. Any questions? So you guys are going to build winning robots this year. CAD drawings, that's the key. And he can do it. Even, this is really, he's been doing this for a long time. This is actually pretty sophisticated. But if you just get the measurements, okay? Just CAD it up. You don't have to do all of these cutouts, and we did because we use a CAM master, which you guys are allowed to come down and if you have your drawings and want to cut up some aluminum, let us know, we'll cut it for you, okay? The reason why I think we were able to win this year is 2 things. We had everything CAD'd up, and we were able to make a super light base because we had everything in drawings and figured out where we can cut out the extra aluminum to make a super light base to allow us to put all the stuff up here for the superstructure. 2 motors over here weigh a lot, for the winch mechanism. The bars, the arms, this all weighs a lot. If we would have had a real solid aluminum base like we used to build in the past, there's no way we could have done it. So if you come up with a design, come up with your base, and then even though you think you got a great margin, weight margin, and you're not worried about it, worry about it, okay? Try to make as light a base as possible, okay? Because that will allow you to put extra stuff on your robot to make it more competitive. And make it as light as possible. And again, give us a call. We're going to try to see, we got this CAM master to lay this stuff down. You give us the drawings and we'll cut it out. Okay, make it easy for you. And that, for us, this year was the first year we used the CAM master. We were able to do all this. Remember I said the dragon thing? Here are the dragon wings. See that in that one? Right? That's an afterthought. We had no clue what this robot's going to look like.
And then don't design your parts first. Don't try to say, oh, I want to make it as light as smallest as possible. Work through what you need. The main point that you need to do. You need to accomplish your task. We need to pick up the ball. So we said, okay, this is what we need to do is pick up the ball. But then you start going through and you start taking away weight. You start with these. We originally started off with one plate, a 1/4 inch plate. We said, oh, that would be strong enough. And first competition, the plate comes back after a match like that. Says, okay, well now we work through. And you just slowly start changing things.
And that's a good point. I mean, how do you take a 1/4 inch aluminum plate? It's hard to bend. But we're at this competition, and because it got bent, it jammed up our intake. It was a mess. So how do you make something stronger and still lightweight? Well, you put 2 plates in with standoffs.
And that's 3/16 plate, so it's actually thinner than what we originally started off with.
And it's 10 times as strong. Because now you have to bend 2 plates, plus where all the points are. We figured out where all the force goes when you try to bend something. You can't bend this now because all these points here are against another piece of aluminum that's keeping it from bending. So if you look at the picture of the actual arm with the 2 pieces, it's lighter weight than the original, and it's 10 times as strong. You see the 2 plates here, and we had standoffs in between there. So it's almost like a solid piece, that thick. Okay? And again, Solidworks, the more advanced you are with it, you can actually put stress analysis on here to see what happens when it bends. So these points here keep it from bending.
One other big point. If you do get to the point where you can do this and you can start modeling everything in SolidWorks, ounces count. Don't put a bolt in that you get off Link MasterCard, and don't just bring it in. Make sure you go back in. All of these items have mass properties. So right now this is set at 60/61 aluminum. So I can come back in here and if I click the right button, I can tell you that this weighs 1.18 pounds. When we came through this, one of our old engineers, what he would do is he'd say, okay, well, I'll just throw in 10 pounds. I'll leave a 10%
You
margin.
said 10% margin.
So if my robot says that I weigh 110, I'm pretty close to that. 120, I need to be around 180. There's plenty of times where that's came back and bit us because he might have missed this, or he didn't account for the 10 pounds of screws that he gave us, or he forgot in the past, the different weights of objects, and something you kind of missed on it. You'll learn to go through and say, we've got 2 scales at Tri-C that we constantly keep around, and anytime we throw a part on, get a weight. Let's double check it. Let's make sure that it actually weighs what it weighs. Motors, transmission assemblies. Make sure you guys kind of get a look at the weight.
Do you realize just the pneumatics alone, if you put pneumatics on your robot, you're adding 12 pounds?
For all your brass parts, your compressor is 3 to 4 pounds. Your storage tanks, depending on if you use the aluminum ones, I think those things are 1.5 pounds. Tubing, all the fittings. Those brass fittings weigh a lot. Even getting to the newer plastic ones that they're coming out with, that stuff weighs a lot, and it slowly starts to add up. And if you're not paying attention, it'll catch up to you very quickly.
We've been in competition where our robot was so marginal as far as the weight goes, we'd actually remove every other screw or every other bolt just to try to lighten it up. I think we're done, right? We're over time. Okay, any more questions? Okay, again, we're available. We'll try to see if you need any help. Just give us a call. We're more than willing to help you out, cut stuff out. We got some experienced robotics people here looking for projects.
If you guys are looking for SolidWorks and your school doesn't have it, you can go on, I think if you search First Robotics SolidWorks, SolidWorks actually sponsors First Teams, and they'll give you 30 seats of SolidWorks for free. And it actually goes for
A year.
No, it's like almost 2 years. So we just recently upgraded to 2016, and I think we have it until like June of 2018. So they give you a large amount of time, and they also, like I said, every year around June, I think is when they release the new one. So all you gotta do is go back online, fill out another application. I'm to the point where the representative for the area, I have her email, and every around May or June, I just send her an email. Hey, so is the new Solidworks out yet? Because we want to upgrade our computers and blah blah blah. So
Yeah, it's free. SolidWorks is free. You can just download it. It's a very expensive program if you were to buy it. And it's the education version. If you're in the first robotics program, it's free. So get it.
don't get frustrated. Take your time. You'll find out over time how to do parts a certain way. If you're not sure about one part that you're making, just save it, close it, open it up, save it as a new file, and start playing with it there. That way you never mess yourself up and you can't go back to what you used to have. So that's
We really are done now.
yeah.
Yep.